yet another week of class. I hope everybody is doing well. We are certainly seeing signs of fall here in Raleigh. The air has turned cool and crisp, although I suspect it's not going to stay that way for that much longer. I think summer will likely make one last stand, and then hopefully fall will be here to stay. The leaves are starting to change just a little bit, so I think that is highly encouraging. So this week we're changing our focus slightly. For the first few weeks of class, we focused on what the sociological perspective is, thinking about how sociologists view the world, thinking about how sociological research is done, and then some of the theoretical elements to the discipline. Today we're starting our second unit of the semester, where we're actually going to be thinking about different components of sociology as a discipline. So different things, different parts that sociologists think about when they examine the social world. And we're starting off with the process of socialization. So there are quite a few things that sociologists disagree on, but something that there is the process of socialization is something where there's largely consensus. Everybody in the discipline kind of agrees that this is a thing and that this happens. So to start off with, to introduce you to what I'm referring to here, socialization is essentially a big learning process. It is how we learn to be social beings in this social world. So when you think about it, when babies are born, when we enter this world, we're obviously human in a lot of ways. Our lungs fill with air, our heart beats, blood circulates through our body, and in that way we are humans, we are animals. But the things that make us humans, the things that separate us from other species, are things that we learn. Things such as feelings and rationality, logic, beliefs, and identities. We essentially learn or develop our social selves through this process of socialization. So this term social self refers to the values, ideas, beliefs, and decision-making strategies people use to lead their lives. And again, the underlying point of our topic this week is that we learn all of these things. And in a lot of ways, I think that probably sounds like a very obvious statement, but in another way, it's really not that obvious, because our social selves are so personal, because our values, our beliefs, our personalities, our decision-making strategies, because they seem so personal to us, and they are quite personal to us. Sometimes we fail to see how they are a product of the larger social world, or how the social environment actually plays a role in shaping this part of ourselves. So that's an introduction of what the process of socialization is. Next thing I want to say just a few words about what the functions of socialization are. So kind of what is the purpose of the process of socialization to society. First and foremost, socialization helps us fit in to society. So socialization facilitates cultural competency. It helps social actors know how to behave in any given society, in any given culture. And we'll talk more about culture next week. So that's one function of socialization. It results in cultural competency. Secondly, this process of socialization helps perpetuate society. So if we didn't have socialization, if there wasn't this mechanism where humans learn beliefs and values and ideas and decision-making strategies, if we didn't have this mechanism in place, then essentially after each generation died off, the next one would have to start from scratch, would have to figure out how to do things on their own. And you can see how that would stunt progress considerably, so how that would impede the progress of humankind. And so the socialization basically helps society perpetuate the fundamental nature of existing social structures. So there's very much a functional component to the process of socialization in a Durkheimian sense that we learned about last week. Now, I should also mention at this point that there are certain aspects of our society, certainly historically speaking and definitely contemporarily as well, there are certain aspects of our society related to inequality and oppression that we should be critical of. So the point that I'm making here is that just because something has always been a certain way doesn't mean that that's how it always should be. So while there is a functional component in how socialization helps society perpetuate, there are elements of our societal arrangements that need not be perpetuated. And we will be focusing on that a little bit more directly in the latter half of this semester. Another point about socialization, it's very much an active process. So sometimes sociologists have a tendency to emphasize the influence the social environment, the social world, all these external forces have on individual actors. That's kind of our bias, right? That is the lens through which we see the world. But in doing so and emphasizing that, it kind of implicitly suggests that humans, that social actors are somehow passive, that we're just kind of here in this world and social forces beat down on us and give us our values and give us our beliefs and give us our decision-making strategies. But in actuality, it's a much more active process. People play an active role in their socialization. So it's not like we just sit there and we soak up whatever messages that we come across or that we accept whatever other people and institutions present to us. We actively select what we are going to let influence our social selves and what we are going to not affect our social selves. Okay. So how does the process of socialization work? A lot of sociologists have said a lot of things about these processes. I'm going to say a few words about two theorists specifically, and these are the ones that are referenced in your textbook, which you need to read. So first, I want to talk about Cooley's looking glass self. And this process basically describes how we come to think of ourselves, and it involves three stages. So first, he said that we imagine how others see us, how others view us, and this is in terms of both our physical appearances, but as well as our personalities and our competence, our values, our beliefs, our decision-making strategies. We imagine how others see us. And then we anticipate or we imagine what other people's reactions are going to be to their perceptions of us. And then lastly, we feel shame or pride based on how we think others are going to respond to us. And this is a very technical process. He was very clear in distinguishing between three different discrete phases, but really the way that this unfolds is almost in an unconscious way. Basically, what it suggests is that our ideas of ourselves, which includes our values, our beliefs, our behaviors, are acceptable based on how we imagine others see and react to them. Something else to note in terms of Cooley's looking glass self is that he felt like primary groups were of the utmost importance in how this looking glass self process works. So primary groups are those that are closest to us, the groups that we have more intimate relationships with, our family, our friends, our significant others. And remember, this process happens from the moment we are born until we die. And if we think that if people generally evaluate us as positively, then we'll feel pride. And conversely, if we feel like others rate us negatively, then we experience shame. And remember, I know I mentioned this a moment ago, but just to re-emphasize, this isn't only a matter of physical outward appearance, but also our beliefs and our values and our behaviors. So if we think that others are going to rate us positively on those traits, then we feel pride. If we think that others rate us negatively on those traits, then we feel shame and are likely to alter our behaviors and beliefs and values. This happens at both the macro and micro level. So our society has standards and expectations of people, and whether or not individuals conform or deviate from those expectations, they will feel pride or they will feel shame. A lot of this macro level stuff that I'm referring to here is very much related to systems of inequality and oppression in our society, which again we'll focus on a lot towards the end of the semester. And this obviously also happens at a more micro level in our interpersonal interaction. So for example, if you get up one weekday morning, you roll out of bed, you go through your usual routine of getting ready, you feel good, you slept well the night before, you don't somehow feel off, you feel normal, you step outside your front door and the first person you encounter says, "Oh, Emily, are you feeling okay? You look a little off today." And my initial response would probably be like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I would probably brush it off though and not think much of it. But if a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth person were to make a similar comment, at some point I would probably start to internalize their perception of me, and I may start to feel bad or might start to feel shame in how they're receiving me. Okay, so that was Cooley's Looking Glass Self in a nutshell. I need to pause here to take a very quick sip of water. Okay. So the second process of socialization I wanted to touch on very briefly is George Herbert Mead's I versus me. And there's a very kind of Freudian element to this process of socialization. So Mead suggested that the self involves two parts, or there are two phases to our social selves. There is the I and then the me. The me is the part of yourself based on how others see you, whereas the I is the part of self that is uniquely yours. The I is more instinctual than is the me. The I might want something, but the me takes into account how others are going to view that. Essentially, the I listens to the me, or the me can constrain what the I wants. And I keep saying wants, but this applies to a variety of different things. Our beliefs, our values, our behaviors, a whole slew of elements related to our social selves. There's a conversation that McIntyre provides between the I and the me that's listed on page 158 of your text that I think will be helpful in understanding this distinction. So the last thing to mention in terms of socialization are agents of socialization. So this term refers to the groups of people that we learn from. So who or what are we learning from? And the strongest agents of socialization include family, school, mass media, and peer groups. So the family is important because in a lot of ways it is the first agent of socialization that we come in contact with. And you have to ask, well, what do we learn from our families? We learn right from wrong. We learn our belief structures, our political beliefs, our religious beliefs are often derived from our families. And then we also learn more practical things from our families, like how to tie our shoes or how to go to the restroom. They help us be functional adults or functional people in this world. School is also important because we spend a lot of time there. When you think about it, we are in school from about the age of 5 to 18 for several hours a day, and a lot of us have been in school for much longer than that age of 18. What types of things do we learn from school? Well, there's some obvious things that we learn from school through the education we receive, factual knowledge, problem-solving skills, but then there's another type of learning that goes on that's referred to as the hidden curriculum, lessons or messages that we receive that are a little bit more covert than the lessons we learn in our history and math and English classes. So in schools, we learn how to be treated like everybody else, which is different than how we're treated in families. In families, we typically are thought of as individuals, unique individuals, as special people. And in school, by and large, everybody is beholden to the same rules and to the same standards, regardless of who you are as a person. We're also taught values such as patriotism and school pride in the school setting. And in an American education system, we learn how to conform, how to obey rules. And there is an element of inequality associated with the socialization that we receive in our education system, but we'll talk about that a little bit more directly when we get to our class inequality unit in a few weeks. Other agents of socialization include the mass media and peer groups, but I'm going to let you read about those on your own. McIntyre gives you some information about those because this is running a little bit long as is. So that's all that I have prepared by way of lecture for this week. I hope you all stay healthy and well. As always, if anything comes up in between now and then, please let me know. I think at this point in the semester, many of you realize that I am highly e-responsive. It's something I pride myself on. So never hesitate to send me an email. Although keep in mind that I adhere to my email hours pretty strictly. So send an email whenever you want, but be mindful of the times in which you're likely to receive a timely response. Have a great week. Bye.